Today I'm going to be presenting my research on abuse in the Catholic Church. Institutional sexual abuse is known across the world. In the United States alone, 4% of all priests active between 1950 and 2002 had allegations of abuse. This study, called The Nature and Scope of Sexual Abuse of Minors by Catholic Priests and Deacons in the United States, 1950 through 2002, page 4. This statistic was found in a study done by the research team of John Jay College of Criminal Justice, published in 2004. It is not unique to the Catholic Church, this issue. However, it is the institution that bears the most shocking allegations. This institution has also drastically failed at properly addressing and eradicating these issues. Through this speech, I will examine the atrocities of the Catholic Church in an attempt to understand them. That is, I will prove how the Catholic Church defended clergy actions by not addressing the serious crime or illnesses of these abusers, as well as their refusal to acknowledge and heal innocent victims. I will do so by analyzing the role of the Church, the typology of abusers, and how the Church has attempted to make reparations, as well as the local impact. So first, I'm going to provide the role of the Church and how much responsibility it shares for these crimes. So the role of the clergy and the church. The clergy obviously have the most present role, but it is the church itself as an institution that allowed these crimes to go on for too long. So the priests have a unique relationship with families within the parish. Not that all priests, remain professional or unprofessional rather, but those that do, become more invested in, specific families' lives. They can have, become a family member or even take on a God complex. This really becomes, a power struggle between vulnerability and power. So regardless of the role within specific families, they are still responsible for keeping children safe and unharmed. So lines can be crossed. They can even coerce children into sexual favors for spiritual rewards. As stated by Kaiser in her article, Clergy Sexual Abuse in U.S. Mainline Churches, 1996, this breach of trust is even more damaging when the abuser is a priest or minister, since for most believers, he or she is a representative of God, and the victim's spirituality and faith may be destroyed as a result of the betrayal. Characteristically, soul stealing is a term which has been used to describe this particular form of abuse. That was in her own words, and it was found on page 32 of Kaiser's work. These incidents are more of a struggle, as I said, between vulnerability and power, not the actual sexual act, as according to Kaiser. So then we move on to the cover-ups of clergy, which tend to be the most heinous and most shocking. So all levels of the clergy are guilty at some point, either of actual misconduct or, this harmful secrecy. So within canon law, these cases of abuse are deemed the pontifical secret. According to Tapsol's 2015 article, The Strange Disconnect Between Pope Francis's Words and Actions About Sexual Abuse, the pontifical secret basically means the greatest level of confidentiality by all members of the clergy, and it is implemented in relation to these cases. So even if, it is that they want to speak out about these crimes, they are bound by canon law to remain secret about them. So this, pontifical secret about these things still exists in canon law and is not renounced by our new Pope Francis. Pope Francis ignored the role of canon law and the cover-up and said, "I deeply regret some bishops failed in their responsibility to protect children." There was not a word about the fact that in most cases such bishops were complying with the pontifical secret under canon law and its requirement to try and cure the priest before any attempt to dismiss him. So that's also from Tapsell and in his own words. So now that we have established the obvious role of the church, we will move on to the typology of abusers. So let's first look at, the treatment or so-called treatment. So priests are usually sent to church and stated treatment centers after allegations are made. So basically the severity of allegations determines the process. If multiple allegations occur, this means that the accused clergy usually enters a treatment center. But this is after, multiple allegations have come up. And so they decide that that's, of course, the right point to move them into the treatment center. So less serious crimes, or not less serious crimes, but less serious allegations, meaning less of them, really denotes that the clergy just being reassigned, which can occur several times before the clergy is even treated. So, as the clergy moves to a new parish, these incidences could still be occurring, but they just keep being reassigned instead of actually being treated. In Kaiser's own words, sexual abuse of minors is a criminal offense. It is also a serious illness similar to alcoholism or drug addiction, which most experts agree is treatable and controllable, but incurable. There is no guarantee against recidivism. So there is no guarantee, no matter what the treatment, that these events won't happen again. So in order to really define the type of treatment and the success from it, we have to look at the type of abuser. So there's two different types, basically the pedophile and another, which is called an ephebophilia. Probably butchering that pronunciation, but that's the psychological term. I think this definition of pedophile is important because it really defines that this is a recurrent need and is something that is a disease and not something that can just go away. According to that same study, The Nature and Scope of Sexual Abuse of Minors by Catholic Priests and Deacons in the United States from 1950 to 2002, begin quote, "Some child sexual abusers are diagnosed as pedophiles, meaning that they exhibit recurrent, intense, sexually arousing fantasies, urges, or behaviors related to sexual contact with a prepubescent child over a period of 6 months duration." And then that ephebophilia is the same need, but just a different age of victim, again from that same study. So, this is still the same problem, but it's really defining them by age groups. Abusers with a history of child sexual abuse and a sexual need for it, they're called fixated offenders, and they are the most likely to keep abusing and have the least success with treatment. This is from that same study. Understanding why these events transpired truly aids in understanding how the church ignored allegations and refused the victim's rights as a human being. So next, we will analyze the current steps towards reparation, as well as the importance of healing by all parties affected. So the Catholic Church has really proved that they are unable to handle these matters. Still, the Church believes it has the ecclesiastical right to solve them. This right is really defined by them because it has been given them to them for so long. This deference and this, okay, you know what you're doing, but obviously they don't. And this is, this falseness is proved by their current actions towards reparations. So right now, the current process that they use, the victim would be physically compensated for therapy funds and further suffering, according to Formicola in her 2016 article, Recalibrating U.S. Catholic Church-State Relations, the Effect of Clerical Sexual Abuse. In Formicola's own words, the priest would return to his duties, the victim would be financially compensated, canon law would prevail, and the church would be spared the loss of its sacrosanct reputation, on page 313. So, placing the blame becomes very important, as well as the accountability and the amount of responsibility that the church has. As stated by Gleason in her article from 2016, Responsibility and Redress, Theorizing Gender Justice in the Context of Catholic Clerical Child Sexual Abuse in Ireland and Australia. Begin quote. When responsibility for wrongs is not placed or assumed by perpetrators and their enablers, victims of mass crimes may experience profound existential crisis of normative abandonment by state and society. That's from Gleason on page 780. So again, the Catholic Church as a whole must take accountability for their responsibility of these crimes. So the legal system becomes the only way for true justice to be served. This is because canon law forbids child sexual abuse. However, the enforcement of that law is what makes it unsuccessful. So it's really, a case-by-case status of how successful canon law becomes. This was found by Formicola. Said canon law also does not allow any rights for the victim, again rendering it ineffective from Formicola. The state's legal system is the only way to cause true change. So now that we have established, the process of reparation, we'll now look at the process of healing. Healing is unique to an individual, and therapy usually becomes something that's needed. The Catholic Church created this monster and now they must fix it. And Chopko's own words from his article in 2004, continuing the Lord's work in healing his people, a reply to Professors Lupu and Tuttle, begin quote. But in addition to preventing the recurrences of abuse, churches must also heal the wound in the faith community caused by abuse and inaction. To do so requires outreach and reconciliation, and often monetary compensation. This is from, end quote, this is from Chopko on page 1898. So moving on from the importance of reparations, we will now look at the local impact of allegations within the Diocese of Kansas City. The Diocese of Kansas City St. Joseph enacted a series of 9 masses titled Healing Our Parishes Through Empathy, as found in Montgomery's 2006 article from the Kansas City Star titled Worshippers Seek Healing for Kansas City Diocese Torn Apart by Sexual Abuse. So after Bishop Finn resigned, who was a bishop in the Kansas City area, who resigned from his entanglement or cover-up of a child sexual abuse case. Though the diocese does not claim this is the reason for the masses, this did come after his resignation, so that coincidence can't be overlooked. This was from Montgomery. Thoughts on these masses are mixed. Many are saying that they're not genuine. They're really questioning if just saying that the church is sorry and has empathy for the victims isn't enough. This is also from Montgomery. So I had the personal opportunity to interview Dawn Blackman for her thoughts. Blackman is a lifelong Catholic, always has been a Catholic, and has chosen to raise her children in the Catholic faith. Not only that, she has also chosen to homeschool them. And so she's giving them that theology while also protecting them in her home environment. So she provided the idea that Catholics do not support the bishop's actions, but must support him as an authority leader. She also asserted that these crimes are not unique to the Catholic Church, and it's a shock, really, that anyone harming a child, it's the shock of anyone harming a child that causes a tidal wave of emotion, not just in the Catholic Church. It's really the act alone that causes this panic. So finally, we will examine the positive outcomes of these events. Despite all the conflict of how the church is dealing with these issues, the truth is that people are fighting back, not just remaining silent in shock. On the more positive side of things, these events have forced necessary policies and restructuring to take place. Found in Chopko's article, in his own words, by and large, these lessons are seen in policies and programs that both respond to abuse and prevent it by educating parents and others about abuse before it happens. The results are seen in lowered rates of abuse as churches incorporate these policies and programs into action mechanisms. This is from Chopko, page 1898. Within the Kansas City Diocese, a program called Protecting God's Children is in place, which ensures, among many other things, that at least 2 adults are present for any kind of service for children, and these 2 adults can't be married. It is possible that child sexual abuse by members of the clergy continues to take place at the same time, as long as these numbers decrease and the necessary institutions and people are held accountable, and all victims are allowed their rights as human beings and healing continues to take place, then all of this means that this has been a victory for the people. So thank you.